While the combat bonuses you get from professions in Mist of Pandaria don't change all that much, in fact all of them are pretty much the same, but obviously just stronger to match the MoP numbers, because the stat increase from level 85 to 90 is as you would expect, with massive increases to primary stats and secondary stats, much like we saw going from Wrath of the Lich King into Cataclysm. But there's a lot of smaller changes to many professions that you absolutely need to know about. When I talk about combat bonuses being the same, blacksmithing still gets extra sockets, jewel crafting still gets bigger gems, engineering still gets the powerful glove tinker, as well as other real cool things like Jeeves, even a new robot called Blingtron, which we'll cover in a later video. Tailoring get their cloak enchants, scribes get their shoulder enchants, so on and so forth. All of them are almost identical, so I suppose the good news is, right now in Cataclysm, if you've got the two best professions for your class, all likelihood is they'll still be the best for your class in the next expansion as well. In this video, we're going to focus primarily on crafting professions, because we'll take a good look at gathering or secondary professions in another video, because quite honestly, whilst they're quite boring, there's some subtle changes and even items that you can get which actually enhance secondary professions, which at the moment you might be like, what? That makes no sense. Trust me, it will. So probably a good time to say like and subscribe so you don't miss that video. Right off the bat, you're going to hear me say Spirit of Harmony throughout this video, so let's start with what that is, because you'll probably assume it's like Chaos Orbs in Cataclysm or even Frozen Orbs from Wrath of the Lich King, but actually they're nothing like that. Everything you kill in Pandaria has got a chance of dropping motes of harmony. Now you combine 10 of these motes of harmony to form one Spirit of Harmony. These will be used in many professions and even just used as a source of gold, because there's a vendor that you can go to where you can trade these in, much like the Justice Trades Good vendor, for example, which that no longer exists, as in there's no way to trade Justice points in for Mist of Pandaria, crafting reagents or anything like that. Instead, you can trade in Spirits of Harmony. The thing is, pretty much every profession needs these Spirits of Harmony for certain things. Most of the time, they're actually used to bypass daily cooldowns, which we'll get onto in a minute. First of all, I can't really overstate how important Inscription's going to be. This is probably going to be the profession that you actually stack a lot of your alts as, because what you might not know is Dark Moon cards, firstly, they're super strong. Like you would expect, like Volcano being super strong, even to this point now in Firelands, in Cataclysm, to all the Wrath of the Lich King Dark Moon decks as well being strong, like Greatness staying strong for a long time. This is no different. The Caster Trinket, the Healer Trinket, and especially the Strength/Agility Trinket, they are all incredibly strong. The difference is, while back in Cata, or even back in Wrath of the Lich King, where you could just make as many cards as you physically could afford, as in you would just buy loads and loads and loads of herbs, mill them, craft cards, hope you get lucky, trade them. You can't really do that in MoP. For Inscription in MoP, you're going to be using a daily cooldown, which is called a Scroll of Wisdom. Now, these Scroll of Wisdoms are needed for far more than just Dark Moon cards, but this does mean each character is limited to making one Dark Moon card a day, because each Dark Moon card needs one of these scrolls. So if you want to maximize the amount of cards you can make and increase the speed at which you're making decks, you want scribes on lots and lots of characters. To put it into perspective, on the server that I play on at the moment, I've got 7 scribes and I'm pumping out cards daily, and it still felt like it took a really, really long time to be able to get the deck that I wanted. Now, this is not all the scrolls are used for. In fact, you can make a bind on account staff, either an agility version or an intellect version, and you heard me right, they are bind on account. So these are a great 476 entry-level epic item, which for ults, as soon as you ding 90 to be able to use one of these, will be phenomenal. But these do take 20 Scrolls of Wisdom, along with other materials as well, but you're looking at 20 days before you can actually make one of these. So even with an army of scribes, you're still probably going to want to be, you know, keeping one of them saving their scrolls to make one of these staves, or maybe 2 different ones making both types. The shoulder enchant is obviously absolutely amazing. It's pretty much on par when it comes power-wise as all the other professions. So really, when it comes to Inscription, the biggest change I want to make you aware of is the Dark Moon card situation and why. Unless Blizzard was to change something, which I hope they don't, because it's quite cool that you can only make one a day. Keeps the values very high on these, because, yeah, only being able to make one a day, and if you get something like an Oxen, which is the tanking trinket cards, it sucks a little bit. But when you get a Tigers, which is the agility or strength trinket card, they're going to sell for big gold.
Whilst I was editing this, there was one thing I did realise that I thought I'd better just add in afterwards, and that's there's no reputation for shoulder enchants now. So like Therazane in Cataclysm or Sons of Hodir in Wrath of the Lich King, there's no more, which is strange when MoP is a very reputation-driven expansion, but there isn't one for shoulder enchants. Instead, it's a way for Inscription to make even more gold, because you actually make the blue version of the shoulder enchants with regular inks, and then with the big inks that you also use for cards, for example, you can make the epic shoulder enchants, and they're all BOE, so you can sell them all on the auction house, so you can make some good bunts.
Blacksmithing doesn't change all that much, except for later in the phases, it goes a little bit old school. So it goes back to the old school TBC blacksmithing weapons, where you could make a two-handed sword, then the next phase would come out and you'd be able to upgrade that and still use it. The next phase would come out, you'd be able to upgrade it even further. Blacksmithing goes down exactly the same path here. Unfortunately, this doesn't actually happen until you get your daily cooldown. What you'll notice as we go through the professions is pretty much all of the crafting professions now, even if it's not in at launch, end the expansion with some form of daily cooldown. So whilst making these weapons is completely irrelevant at the start, because it's not actually until we get access to the Isle of Thunder, which is going to be Throne of Thunder, so actually 5.2, which will actually probably be phase 3 for Classic, you're not going to be able to get the recipe which enables you to start making the daily cooldown to be able to craft these weapons. But aside from that, combat-wise, you still get your 2 extra sockets, but also blacksmithing gets a little bit of a different way of leveling. Other professions do get similar, so Inscription, for example, at around 75 skill in Inscription, you'll be able to learn how to make Tome of Clear Minds. These are what you need to be able to change your talents, but they'll also give 3 skill points pretty much all the way up to Mr. Pandaria Crafting, which means leveling your future scribes actually during MoP is pretty quick, because you can just catch up using the most current materials. Even though you can technically kind of do that anyway now, because you can just get the highest inks and then trade them down and whatever, but this is probably just a quicker way of doing it. But blacksmithing is the one profession where you can actually use ghost iron bars, which are from Mr. Pandaria, all the way to 600, because you get these like rubbish recipes that you can get from the trainer, and it's a lot of mats. That's why I didn't even want to mention it, but it is a legitimate way to get to 600, especially probably later on in MoP, where all the ore and bars are really cheap anyway, so you don't need to go back and get mithril or thorium or anything like that. You can literally just max blacksmithing just with MoP mats, but again, it's the only profession that can. Engineering gets synapse springs. Now, you have to already know the Cataclysm synapse springs to learn the MoP synapse springs from the trainer, which kind of makes it a little bit of a pain if you're leveling engineering actually during MoP, because you're going to have to use more catamats, which generally will be more expensive, to make sure you actually discover synapse springs. But to be fair, in Classic, getting the Tinkers was very easy anyway, so probably not a concern. But you're going to get a Goblin Glider that can go on your cape. You've still got use of Rocket Belt if you want to use it. You're going to have synapse springs along with a bunch of other tinkers, but in general, most people normally go engineering for the Rocket Belt and, of course, the synapse springs. Now, it's worth mentioning that most classes are far more mobile in MoP than they was in Cataclysm, so actually, I think it reduces the value a little bit of engineering when it comes to the belt, because there's not many classes that aren't particularly mobile, but still having another form of movement speed increase in raids is obviously really good. Engineers can also sell portable anvils, so if you're really into your crafting and you want to be able to drop an anvil at will, you'll be able to buy these from your engineers. And then there's going to be a new little robot you can make called Blingtron. Now, Blingtron's pretty cool because you can actually get mounts from the gift package that he gives you, and everybody can use this Blingtron. So you can drop it down in a major city and everybody can use it once a day. Obviously, it's not going to stay there for very long. It's only up for 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. But whenever there's one around, make sure you're looking on your map, even if you're not an engineer, and go and speak to Blingtron and get your daily gift, because there can be some pretty cool stuff in there. Now, while enchanting doesn't change all that much, there are some pretty cool things that you can actually do. So firstly, you can enchant upwards and you can disenchant downwards. What I mean by that is you can turn your dust into essences, your essences into shards, and then your shards into crystals. Obviously, it's still far more beneficial to actually go out and get the materials, but you can enchant them upwards the same way you can shatter them downwards. It does mean if you're just rolling around in dust because you've got so much of it, that you can then actually transform some of it into essences. There's no cooldown on that at all. There's only one daily cooldown. What a shocker. Enchanting also has a daily cooldown, and that's turning the crystals, so the blue rare crystals, into a shard crystal. All right, I should call the shards. You're turning the blue shards into an epic shard crystal. Obviously, the shard crystals are used for the big boy enchants like Dancing Steel for your melee, your caster weapon enchants, even things like Strength on Bracers, or, you know, the real big enchants that you expect to need an epic crystal. Enchanting still gets the 2 ring enchants that only you can use as an enchanter. I suppose in general, it's worth mentioning that enchants change. So less about the profession, more about the real RPM system. So for now, let's say something like Power Torrent and Cataclysm, where it's got an internal cooldown before it can proc again. With a real RPM system, don't quite work like that, and actually the more haste you've got, it gives you more chance of proccing the trinket. Instead, it starts at a very low percentage chance to proc, and the longer you are past the real RPM chance for it to proc, then obviously the percentage of it proccing goes up, which also the chance of proccing is increased by haste as well. I'm going to break all this down because it's quite in depth, you know, just when we're talking about enchants, but it does mean they're a little bit more random. They're still quite predictable in the terms of, you know, okay, it's due to proc now, but sometimes it can proc early, sometimes it can proc late, but it's not really got a fixed internal cooldown. That's not every single enchant, and it's not every single trinket proc, but it is most of them in MoP. But again, we'll get more into that in another video. Jewel crafting is actually in a really good place in MoP, because if you hated doing a daily, where every day you had to do a daily just so you could get recipes, you don't need to do that anymore. Much like every other profession, you now have just got a daily cooldown that you use, and you can research whichever one you want. So if you want to research red gems, you use 3 of the red gems to learn a new recipe and get a couple of red gems, like red gems that you can, rare red gems that you can sell on the auction house afterwards at the same time. Now, this is a place where Spirits of Harmony actually come in, because you can use Spirits of Harmony to do extra research. So you don't need to actually wait for the daily cooldown. If you want to use Spirits of Harmony to get all the recipes quicker, you can use these and just accelerate the rate at which you're learning the recipes. But jewel crafting in general hasn't really changed that much, other than the fact that you don't actually need to rely on alchemists to transmute primal diamonds, which is the new head meta gems. You can actually craft them yourself when you get a recipe drop out in the open world, which I actually think this is a really positive change, because it does just mean you're quite self-sufficient, especially if you was mining and jewel crafting. So you can go around and mine, you can prospect, you'll get the gems, and you can then cut everything yourself, including the meta gems, without having to get them from an alchemist or from an alt or the auction house. You do actually have the ability to craft mounts as well, and one big mount, which you're probably going to be able to make some pretty good gold on, and you can even craft pets, which with obviously pet battles probably, I think are going to be quite popular in MoP. Might be able to make some gold with those as well. Tailoring really, again, hasn't changed that much. You've still got your daily cooldown that you're going to be using, but when you use your daily cooldown, it's another place you've actually got a chance of getting a pet. It's just literally a pet that you could sell on the auction house, and you've got a chance every day of getting it. But really, tailoring is a little bit boring, because you're going to use your daily cooldown to get Imperial Silk. You're going to be using the Imperial Silks to probably sell leg enchants, because each leg enchant needs one. And also, you're going to be able to get a bag, which, of course, it comes from a reputation. Augur Celestials, you need to get Exalted, which takes quite a while, and also takes 12 Imperial Silks. Using your daily cooldowns, though, is obviously worthwhile, because you'll be able to make epic gloves and epic chests, which will be selling early on without a doubt, especially with the raids probably being closed for the first week or two. And it's like 4 days to be able to make the gloves, 6 days to be able to make the chest. So, you know, your daily cooldowns are still going to be quite valuable. Much like jewel crafting being able to speed up the amount of recipes they learn by using Spirits of Harmony, you can also do the same as a tailor. You can use free Spirits of Harmony to make extra Imperial Silk. So that is a good thing, but free Spirits of Harmony early on is going to be like quite a decent amount of grinding to actually get. I should have mentioned with Inscription as well, actually having a weekly quest where you can get an extra scroll of wisdom. It costs like 5 or 6 spirits depending on what quest it is, and that's really a lot for one daily cooldown. So you're probably not going to do that until much later on. But apparently you can actually get lucky as these as a scribe when you're opening chests around Vale of Eternal Blossoms. I clearly am very unlucky because I've never had one, but Apparently you can. But yeah, tailoring overall is just pretty much more of the same, as is leverworking. Leverworking's very similar to tailoring, except it's actually a better way of making gold if you like grinding. And the reason I say if you like grinding is because Magnificent Hide is the new rare skinning material that you'll get. So you'll have a chance at getting these when you're actually just out skinning mobs, but also you've got a daily cooldown to make one using either exotic leather or prismatic scales, which are the two more regular skinned materials. Using 20 of either of these, you can make one of them a day, and this is where you actually start to learn your new recipes. But you can in fact make more of these with 50 regular leather, so the exotic leather, but no Spirit of Harmony cost. So actually just going out and skinning with chances to get Magnificent Hide and then converting all your exotic leather into more Magnificent Hide, all you then need is Spirits of Harmony paired with them to be able to make epic leather gloves, epic leather chests, obviously mail gloves and chests as well, which will sell for decent gold. So the more you actually just go out and grind and kill mobs and get Spirits of Harmony from mobs, get skins and hides and all that, it's actually a pretty decent gold maker. Obviously, you've got to be the right sort of person that enjoys going out and killing lots and lots of mobs, but it's an option. But outside of that, leverworking's pretty standard. As I say, you're going to use your daily cooldown to make a Magnificent Hide, which is how you get recipes. You're going to get your big boy wrist enchant, and of course, you can make the leg armors like you would expect. The leg armors also take Magnificent Hide, so there is going to be a good value on these, and actually later down the line, you'll be able to use Magnificent Hide to make hardened Magnificent Hide. So if you're sitting on lots of these by the end of phase 1 or going into phase 2, whatever, just keep hold of them because they will actually be extremely useful again later on in the phases. Which brings us finally to Alchemy. And Alchemy, as you would expect, as in every expansion, is extremely useful and extremely profitable. You can still go Potion Master, Elixir Master, or Transmute Master, and having an army of alchemists along with your army of scribes is definitely worthwhile for the new daily cooldown for Alchemy when it comes to transmuting, which is Living Still. Now, Living Still is needed for many high-level crafts, pretty much everything blacksmithing can make, along with even belt buckles. So every single belt buckle needs a daily alchemy cooldown. Now, these require trillium bars to actually make, and just the trillium bars on their own are going to be pretty expensive because there's two types of trillium ore. There's white trillium ore and black trillium ore. You have to smelt both of those together, well, actually 2 of each of those together to make a bar. Now, trillium ore is basically like the titanium of Wrath of the Lich King, for example. So they're quite rare to find, and when you find them, you don't know what you're going to get from them. That's the thing. You could find 5 or 6 of these and get all black trillium ore, and somebody else might get all white trillium ore. So it's like a little bit RNG, but it's why Living Still will hold its value, because even though you can bypass the daily cooldown again, like the other professions, by using 3 Spirits of Harmony, having that amount of trillium is going to be probably more of a challenge than getting the Spirits of Harmony. Because I should mention that Spirits of Harmony can actually be farmed. And when I say farmed, I mean your farm. You still probably don't know what I mean. You can have your own farm where you can plant and grow stuff, and then you get your crops and you get stuff. You can actually grow Spirits of Harmony, which obviously I'm going to do a full dedicated video on that, but it is a way where, again, you're going to want your whole army actually getting you lots of Spirits of Harmony from their farms. But outside of that, obviously alchemy potions and elixirs, we all know we're going to be using tons of these in raids, so they're always going to have value. There are no cauldrons, I should mention that as well. There's still feasts, but there's no cauldrons. So everybody are actually going to need to get their own flasks again in Mr. Pandaria, so Elixir Master isn't a bad thing. You can also make an absolutely amazing trinket. And the reason I say this is amazing is because back in the day, it was actually one of the strongest, if not the strongest, challenge mode trinket for every single spec. I'm sure that will be proved right or wrong as we get closer to release, but it was definitely, everybody was alchemy. Everybody would go alchemy to use this trinket early on to get the gold challenge modes done, and then probably get rid of alchemy and pick something else up. But combat-wise, you still get additional bonuses from using your flasks, and just what you'd expect with alchemy. But really, the big deal is being able to transmute Living Still on a daily cooldown, and of course, being able to just pump out loads of flasks and pots early on when the prices are going to be sky high. So that's it. That's an overview of all the primary crafting professions. Tomorrow, I'm going to start working on a video which will be all the secondary professions, and trust me, there's a lot to go over, which when I say secondary, I mean fishing, cooking, first aid, and gathering professions. That's what I'm gonna class gathering professions as secondary, because let's face it, most of us all just use double crafting professions and class those as primary. So be sure to like and subscribe before you go anywhere so you don't miss any of the MoP videos, because there's going to be hundreds over the next few months, because I've got literally hundreds to get through. So I'm excited. As you can tell, I'm actually really enjoying doing these MoP videos, because Kata, there's just nothing to talk about at the moment anyway, but as we get closer to Dragon Soul, I'm sure I'll put the odd Dragon Soul video out. Be sure to check out Rested XP in the pinned comment in the description. Use Scottejaye Fresh for 15% off, and I'll see you on the next one.